Hi, I'm Teja Gerken with Peghead Nation, and I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee with Andy Powers of Taylor Guitars, and we've been spending the last couple of days getting to know these new Taylor Grand Pacific guitars, and they're wonderful new instruments, and I just laid that tune, The South Wind, on Andy for the first time. So this is, I think,
that's
our first
why I
time.
missed the ending.
I think this is actually our first time playing together, and it's always a pleasure to hang out with you, Andy. So
it's my
why don't you
pleasure.
tell us a little bit more about these guitars that you've come up with?
Yeah, essentially, this is a guitar that was designed around the V-Class architecture. It was one of the first guitars, even preceding the Grand Auditoriums that we launched last year at the Winter NAMM show. This one was, it was early on because I was trying to build a sound that I was familiar with from the kinds of records and music that I grew up listening to.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that was bluegrass music, country music, folk music. Those kinds of sounds, they're really an indelible part of our guitar playing lineage.
Right.
So I'd listen to these things and go, you know, I've worked on a lot of these old guitars. I've worked on a lot of new guitars. I've built a lot of guitars. I don't actually have one or know of one that really makes these sounds.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because oftentimes what we're hearing is, it's really like a composite sound. You're listening to it through a microphone, EQ'd, compressed. You know, that's the sound that's familiar with us. So when you ask somebody what a great guitar sounds like, you hear all these like contradictory terms. We go, well, is it bright? Is it clear? Is it warm? Is it?
And so much is subjective to the
Yeah, it's
individual,
like,
yes.
I mean, trying to use people words to describe sound seems almost ludicrous. It seems impossible, but yeah, we gotta come up with something to make a comparison.
Yep. So you've built something that in some ways could be described as having a little bit more of a traditional sound. Taylor's been known for having the Taylor sound, which is a little bit more of a, again, you're talking about describing a sound, but I think you could say that it's been a very bright, clear, very balanced sound in the past.
Yeah, to me, it's a very modern sound.
It's a very modern sound, and so you have a new sound, and you also have a new body shape with these guitars.
Yeah. So if you think of the quintessential Taylor sound is a very modern flavor.
Yeah.
You know, what is that? Well, it's vibrant. It's bright in a not trebly way, but kind of brilliant. It's precise. It's articulate. It's all of these like well-defined kind of notes. And I listen to other sounds, other kinds of records, and I go, oh, I like that too.
Yeah.
Some days I feel like that, and some days I feel like this. Okay, well, I'd like to make this too. Now, those notes they're broad. It's like each note is very big, it's wide.
Yeah.
I want them to be accurate, and I want balance, and I want volume and sustain and dynamic range and all these great characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
But the personality of each note is different. And so with this guitar, I built a lot of that familiarity into the design. Mm-hmm. So everything from the way the neck feels,
Right.
the way the notes project off the body, the kinds of sounds it'll make, the way the thing sits on your lap with these kind of this beveled edge treatment and the softened bridge edges and all these details.
And it's almost as big as a dreadnought, but it's got a slightly different shape to it.
Yeah, it's a new shape that, I started with a pretty conventional dreadnought. I went, okay, well that does this, and that's not quite it. That's not really what I want. So this one, I don't know. It's not really a dreadnought. It's kind of a little bit like a dreadnought if you sort of look at it from the right angle. Maybe you could say it's kind of a round-shouldered dreadnought-ish thing. Maybe a little jumbo kind of a thing in there.
For sure.
But it's its own thing.
Yeah.
So I call it a guitar.
Yeah. And so we, of course, just showed you playing it with me playing fingerstyle. I didn't even see. Did you use a pick or did you?
Yeah, I have a pick.
So
at the moment,
playing a little bit softer than if you were flat picking the guitars or something. But you really had someone in mind who might be a roots musician or more traditionally based musician who might want to flat pick that guitar in more of a
with a heavy-handed way,
old-timey kind of a.
It's
and
true.
we had Sean Watkins at the event last night playing the guitar. And that was really
an old
beautiful.
Friend of mine.
It was really a beautiful way of showcasing what the guitar could do in that setting. So.
Yeah, it's, this one, I look at it as, in a lot of ways as like a general purpose guitar.
Yeah.
It's a songwriter's guitar.
Right.
It's a bluegrass musician's guitar.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a modern guitar player's guitar.
Yeah.
You could front a rock band with it. You can play fingerstyle on it.
Yeah.
You could play some jazz on it.
Yeah.
It's a musically useful sound that's just different than what we've done before.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So talk a little bit about how these guitars are built, because they do use your the V-class bracing sort of architecture.
Yeah.
But in a way that's quite different from the grand auditoriums that you guys introduced.
Yeah,
last year.
exactly. The basic system is very similar, but what that design allows is for some more independent control over the way the guitar sounds, right? So you can make it a guitar that has good volume, has good projection, but has long sustain. And you can make it where all the notes have a very uniform linear balance to them.
Right.
So whether you play the low notes, middle range notes, high register notes, everything has this uniform character and consistency that a musician doesn't have to compensate for. Now, one of the real treats, aside from the wonderful intonation that we can build into the guitar with that system, is that it gives us the ability to, like I said, change the shape of each note. I mean, even the difference in wood combinations become more exaggerated.
Right.
Like these guitars, I dressed them up to look almost exactly the same. It's not like a incredibly lavishly decorated guitar, because these ones, possibly more than anything, this is a musician's instrument.
Right.
It's a function, make it sound good, make it feel good kind of instrument.
Right.
But that one is
I've got the mahogany one here, and
with,
you have the
with
rosewood
spruce.
one?
This one's rosewood with spruce. Even these two guitars, because they become such different flavors.
Right, and in some ways, we didn't even talk about this before, but we kind of divided them up in a nice way, and that I think the mahogany has that nice airy quality for some of the open strings and playing more fingerstyle kind of stuff. Just really lends itself to that.
To me, the mahogany sound has like what I would describe as like a dry, fundamental strong sound.
Right.
It's warm and it's clear, but the note you play is the note you get. So the harmonic content is largely coming from the way the strings are moving, from the all the natural harmonics that exist in front of the note that you're playing.
Yeah.
That is allowed to project through.
For sure.
The rosewood version adds a little more of its own flavor into that sonic stew, where you're getting this real thick, kind of luxurious thing where you play one note and kind of everything responds.
And they both have torrefied Sitka spruce tops.
Yeah, they both have roasted spruce tops. But kind of in the world of, let's say if it was cooking, these are just barely treated, because we develop the ability to do all of that ourselves.
Okay.
And I really like the way that a piece of wood ages naturally. Torrefaction does a pretty good job mimicking what an old piece of wood is like, but it certainly isn't exactly the same.
Right.
It's not the same thing.
So you're giving a little bit of a head start, but you're not getting it all the way there.
Yeah, I like the dimensional stability that you get out of the treated wood, because it doesn't respond quite so dramatically to, say, temperature or humidity change. but I do want these guitars to kind of grow old gracefully.
Absolutely.
You know, kind of grow their own gray hair in a way.
Right. So you did a couple things on these guitars that are also new for Taylor. It's a slightly modified bridge design.
It is.
That looks different enough to really notice.
Yeah,
And
it is.
did
It feels a bit different on your hand.
It feels a little different on your hand. It's nicely rounded. And you did a compound radius neck on these, which I find to be really interesting.
So what we call our compound carve, the fingerboard radius, like the playing surface.
Yeah, the carve. We're talking about the back of the neck.
Yeah, that part is still uniform.
Right.
But what I've noticed is that myself and pretty much every other guitar player, we don't hold our hand the same way. And down here, we'll wrap our thumbs a little more. And by the time we're up here higher on the fingerboard by the heel,
you get into more of a classical position.
Yeah,
maybe
you've got
with
your
the
thumb behind the
yeah.
neck. You know, so I wanted to build a neck that was really familiar and comfortable the first time you picked it up. So we've rolled the fingerboard edges into the playing surface of the fingerboard a bit. We've got this different neck profile, even though this real round heel.
Yeah, I noticed
so
that. Yeah.
When I come up here and high, I don't hit a corner right there. In fact, as we build them, we're not putting a strap button on there. Certainly we can add one, that's no big deal.
Yeah.
But for a lot of musicians, they'll find that they don't necessarily want one right there.
And if they're not playing standing up, they give them the choice of adding it. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great feeling neck, and it definitely it doesn't make me think it's a completely different neck. I mean, from a standard Taylor neck, but it's different enough to notice, and it definitely has a little bit more of a vintage kind of feel up here in the first positions, and then gets more into the kind of modern.
It's almost like the most subtle suggestion of a V that I could make.
Exactly. Yeah.
It turns into
almost subliminal, but it's there.
Yeah. It's like just barely there if you're paying attention, and it turns into something that's a bit more round and comfortable to get your thumb on.
Absolutely.
Over here.
Yeah. Very cool. And so you're introducing these two guitars with the mahogany and
the mahogany and the rosewood.
And then there's a 300 series.
There's a 317 as well that has more typical Taylor appointments, because I wanted this voice and this flavor to be approachable to a lot of musicians of a lot of different means.
Great. And they're also available with and without pickups.
Yeah.
You mentioned, correct?
Yeah, you know, a lot of players really enjoy the ES2 pickup system. It works very well in a lot of settings for a lot of different styles.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work perfectly for every musician in every setting, in every style.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of musicians who prefer different pickup choices or prefer none at all.
Right.
You know, so a lot of guys who are mostly playing acoustically or playing in front of microphones, they might prefer one with no pickup whatsoever.
Right.
And you know what? A lot of days I'm right there with them.
Right.
I like these guitars, whether I'm plugging them in or not.
Yeah.
So I think we should be able to build them both ways.
Right. And of course, when you do choose a pickup, it's the standard ES2 pickup system.
Yeah, that does very well
excellent.
with these guitars.
Great. Great. Well, thank you so much for having me out here in Nashville and showing me these guitars. And why don't we close out by you playing something on just that guitar, and we'll take it from there. And we will be certain to demo these new guitars in separate demo clips here on Peghead Nation. And we'll also do a demo of the 317 at some point. So you can look forward to those. And we thank Andrew, Andy, and the whole Taylor crew for having us out here in Nashville.
Hey, it's our pleasure.
All right, thank you.